The restraints tightened around my wrists the moment the scanner above me let out a sound I had never heard a machine make before. It was not a beep. It was not an alert. It was something closer to confusion, if confusion had a voice. My name is Daniel Ashworth, and 3 hours ago I was pulled out of a burning transport pod and dragged into a room built entirely of cold light and colder questions. The beings around me were tall, thin, and covered in a smooth gray plating that shifted color when they spoke to one another. They called themselves the Valkyrie. I would learn later that they had been cataloging every intelligent species in this part of the galaxy for over 9,000 years. Every species fit somewhere in their system, predator or prey, pack or solitary, aggressor or pacifist, every single one, until me. A Valkyrie technician leaned over a console, her fingers moving fast across symbols I could not read. She looked at another technician beside her, a male with a long scar running down one side of his plating, and said something in their clicking language. The translator strapped to my collar caught only fragments. Error. Recalibrate. Run again. They ran it again. I sat there, arms bound to a chair that hummed faintly beneath me, and I watched them grow more frustrated with every pass. I was not afraid. I want to be honest about that, because fear was the first thing they tested for, and fear was the first thing that broke their machine. The scanner above me pulsed a soft blue light across my skin, reading my heartbeat, my breathing, the tiny electrical signals moving through my brain. A calm voice from the ceiling spoke in Valkyrie, and the translator whispered the words into my ear a half-second later. Subject shows elevated fear markers consistent with prey response. Then, almost immediately after, a second reading flashed across the screen behind the technicians, and the calm voice spoke again, faster this time, almost startled. Subject shows suppressed fear markers consistent with apex predator calm. The female technician turned to the male beside her. Her plating flickered a shade of orange I did not understand yet, but I would come to learn meant alarm. That is not possible, she said. A being cannot register both readings in the same breath. He did not answer her. He just stared at the screen the way a person stares at a puzzle with no edges. I did not know it then, but this was the first crack in 9,000 years of certainty. They moved me to a different room an hour later, one with a long table and 6 Valkyrie seated around it, each one older than the last, judging by the deep grooves worn into their plating. This was not a lab anymore. This was a council. A tall Valkyrie at the head of the table introduced herself as Director Asen Vale. Her voice through the translator was steady, careful, the voice of someone used to being obeyed by facts. "You are the first specimen from your species we have been able to retrieve alive," she said. "We intend to understand you before we decide what you are." I told her my name was Daniel. She did not use it. Not yet. They began with simple questions. What do you fear? What do you want? Would you fight to protect a stranger? Would you fight to protect yourself? I answered honestly, because I did not see the use in lying to something that could read my pulse better than I could read my own thoughts. Each answer confused them further. A younger Valkyrie named Ket Doran, who I would come to think of as the one member of that council who did not hate me, leaned forward and asked the question that seemed to matter most to them. If we release a threat into this room right now, something with the strength to kill you, what will you do? I told him the truth. It depends on who else is in the room. He blinked, a gesture I had already learned was uniquely Valkyrie for genuine surprise. That is not an answer, Director Vale said. It is a variable. Exactly, I said. That is what you are dealing with. She did not like that answer. Her plating shifted to a deep, tight red, and she ordered a full biological and behavioral review, cross-referenced against every species ever logged in Valkyrie history. I sat there for 6 more hours while they worked, and during that time I let my mind drift, because there was nothing else to do, and because remembering felt better than waiting. I thought about my sister, a nurse back home who once worked a 30-hour shift without sleep because she refused to let a single patient die on her watch, even strangers, even people who had done terrible things. I thought about my friend Owen, who once ran directly toward a burning building to pull out a dog that was not even his, then joked about it afterward like it was nothing. I thought about the way humans could build hospitals and shelters with the same hands that had once built weapons, sometimes in the very same generation, sometimes in the very same person. I did not tell the Valkyrie any of this out loud. They found it anyway, buried somewhere in the readings they kept pulling from my mind and body. Every memory contradicted the one before it. Gentleness beside violence, selfishness beside sacrifice, fear beside something that looked, on their instruments, disturbingly like joy in the face of danger. By the time the council reconvened, 3 full days had passed by their clocks, and I had barely slept. Director Vale stood at the head of the table, and for the first time since I had arrived, she looked less like an authority and more like someone who had lost an argument with her own certainty. "We have run 4,000 simulations," she said. "We have compared this subject against every classification in Valkyrie history: predator, prey, hive, pack, solitary, communal. Every category fails within minutes of observation. The subject exhibits traits that should be mutually exclusive. It does not fit." A Valkyrie elder near the back of the room, one who had said almost nothing until now, finally spoke. His voice was slow and heavy, like stone dragged across stone. "Then the category is wrong," he said, "not the subject." The room went quiet. Even Ket Doran, who had shown me the closest thing to kindness since my capture, looked uneasy. The elder continued. "We have spent 9,000 years believing that behavior comes from instinct, and instinct can be measured, and measurement can be predicted. This being proves that theory wrong. It does not act from instinct alone, it chooses, and a choice, made freely, cannot be classified the way a reflex can." Director Vale did not like this answer either, but she could not argue with the data in front of her. She turned to me directly for the first time since the council began. "Why did you not attack the guard who struck you during transport?" she asked. "Your physical readings showed you had the strength and the speed to do so." I remembered that moment clearly. A Valkyrie soldier had hit me across the face when I stumbled during processing, more out of nerves than cruelty, I think. I could have fought back. Some part of me wanted to. "Because it would not have helped anyone," I told her, "including me." "And why," she asked, "did you help the injured technician 2 days ago, the one who collapsed near your holding cell? You owed her nothing. She was one of the beings holding you captive." I remembered that too. A young technician had stumbled and fallen near the bars of my cell, clutching her side, and I had reached through the restraints as far as I could and steadied her until others arrived. It had not been a plan. It had simply been the thing to do. "Because she needed help," I said. "That is all." Director Vale stared at me for a long moment, and something in her expression shifted, though I could not yet read Valkyrie faces well enough to know exactly what. "You are not predictable because you lack patterns," she said slowly, almost to herself. "You are unpredictable because your patterns are chosen new each time, based on values we cannot measure directly. Compassion, loyalty, anger, restraint. All of it, layered, changing, awake." The elder spoke again, and this time his words carried the weight of something being decided, not just discussed. "Then we do not classify what this being is," he said. "We classify what it represents, a new tier. Above predator, above prey, above every category built on instinct alone." Director Vale looked around the table at the other 5 council members. One by one, they gave small gestures of agreement, plating shifting to a pale, steady white I had not seen before. "We will call it Apex," she said, "not because it stands above other species in strength, because it stands above our ability to predict it." I sat there, wrists still bound, and felt something strange settle over me. Not pride exactly, something quieter. Something like the weight of being seen clearly for the first time by something that had spent 9,000 years refusing to look past its own certainty. I asked them what this meant for me. Director Vale's answer surprised me more than anything else that day. "It means we do not yet know what to do with you," she said, "and that frightens us more than any weapon you could carry." I would learn later, through fragments passed to me by Ket Doran during quiet moments when the others were not watching, that this classification session had never been purely academic. A human colony ship, one of the first to expand beyond the outer settlements, had drifted into contested space 3 weeks earlier and been intercepted by a Valkyrie patrol. The council had been deciding, this entire time, whether to destroy that ship, negotiate with it, or retreat from it entirely, and every decision depended on what label they gave the species aboard it. Me. Ket Doran told me this while adjusting the restraints on my wrists, loosening them slightly more than protocol allowed. He was risking something by telling me, I think, though I did not fully understand Valkyrie hierarchy well enough to know how much. "They have never delayed a threat assessment this long," he said. "Some in the council want to destroy the colony ship immediately, before more of your kind arrive and the pattern spreads. Others want to study you instead. The Elder's decision to create a new category may have saved that ship, or it may have doomed it. No one is certain yet." I asked him what he believed. He looked at me for a long moment, his plating flickering through colors I still had not learned to read. "I believe," he said, That a species capable of choosing kindness toward its captors is not a species that needs to be destroyed. But belief is not policy. Not yet. That night, if it could be called night in a ship with no windows, I made a decision of my own. I asked to speak with Director Vale directly, without restraints, without an audience. It took convincing, and it took Ket Doran vouching for me in ways I still do not fully understand, but eventually she agreed. She sat across from me in a small, quiet room, and for the first time since I had arrived, there was no scanner between us. "You wanted to speak with me," she said. "I did," I said. "I want you to let the colony ship go. Not because I am asking you to trust humanity blindly, because I am asking you to test the theory your own elder proposed. If we are unpredictable because we choose, then give us the chance to choose peace before you assume we will choose war." She studied me for a long time. I could not read her expression, but I could read the stillness in the room, the way even the quiet hum of the ship's systems seemed to pause around us. "You ask me to gamble the safety of my people on a theory," she said. "I ask you to test a hypothesis," I said, "the same way your scientists tested every reading on me for 3 days straight. If we attack that ship expecting war, we may create the very thing we feared. If we offer peace and it fails, we have lost nothing we would not have lost anyway. But if it succeeds, you gain something no other species in your 9,000 years of history has ever offered you. An ally that cannot be predicted, but can be trusted." She did not answer me that night. She simply rose and left the room without a word, and I sat there wondering if I had just saved a ship full of strangers or condemned myself for the attempt. 3 days later, Ket Doran came to my cell with restraints removed entirely and a look on his face I had not seen from him before. Something close to relief. "The council has voted," he said. "The colony ship will be escorted to neutral space under Valkyrie protection. Not attacked, not seized, escorted." I felt something loosen in my chest that I had not realized was tight. "Why?" I asked. "Because Director Vale presented your words to the full council," he said, "and because the Elder reminded them that a species capable of asking to be tested, rather than demanding to be trusted, was already behaving in a way no predator or prey species in their records ever had. You did not beg. You did not threaten. You offered them a way to verify you on their own terms. That, more than anything else, convinced them." I was released 2 weeks later, not because the Valkyrie fully trusted humanity yet, but because Director Vale herself argued that trust could not be built through captivity. I do not know everything that happened in that council after I left the room that night, but I know this. The word Apex was entered into the Valkyrie Galactic Registry as an official classification, the first new tier added in over 2,000 years, with a single line attached to every future encounter protocol involving my species. Unpredictable. Do not assume, do not corner. I think about that phrase often now, back among my own people, back under skies I recognize. We did not ask to be a new category. We did not set out to break 9,000 years of alien certainty. We were simply doing what we have always done, choosing kindness in one breath and defiance in the next, mercy toward strangers and fierce protection of our own, calm in the face of danger and trembling in the quiet moments after, all of it woven together in ways no scanner could separate into neat little boxes. The Valkyrie spent 9,000 years building a system to predict every species they encountered, and it worked, right up until it met something that refused to be reduced to instinct alone, not because we are stronger than every other species out there, not because we are more clever or more advanced, but because we choose, every single time, in ways that even we do not always predict about ourselves. Director Vale told me once, before I left, that the most unsettling thing about humanity was not our strength, or our weapons, or even our contradictions. It was the fact that we could look directly at our own capacity for harm and choose gentleness anyway, again and again, without a single instinct forcing our hand. I did not have a clever answer for her that day. I only told her the truth. "That is not a mystery to us," I said. "That is just what it means to be human." She did not respond right away, but as I turned to leave that ship for the last time, I heard her voice behind me, quiet, almost to herself, repeating the word the council had chosen. Apex. I have thought about that word many times since returning home, not as a title of strength, though I suppose it could be read that way. I think of it instead as an admission, made by a species far older and far more advanced than us, that no chart, no scan, no 9,000 years of careful observation could ever fully capture what it means to choose who you want to be, moment by moment, even when no one is watching, even when the only witness is a machine trying desperately to understand you. They wanted a category that could predict us, What they got instead was a warning to never assume they could.